Welcome everybody to Fins and Fangs. My name is Tyson, and today I'm going to be giving you guys a tour of my collection. So guys, this is the shelf that I mainly keep all my adult tarantulas on, along with a few other things. So let's start at the top and mark our way to the bottom. So to start us off here, we have the Avicularia. This is a New World arboreal tarantula. I just recently got this tarantula from a guy on Craigslist. He also sold me two other tarantulas, which you'll see here shortly. I don't know yet if this is a male or a female because it hasn't molded in my care yet, but fingers crossed for a female. So as you can see, I'm keeping her in an arboreal enclosure with a little bit of substrate, maybe an inch or two, with a cork bark round. And I also have this live plant in here. This is a spider plant, water dish, and also it has the screen lid, but I'm going to be replacing that soon with plexiglass. So moving on to the second shelf, we have my Aphonopelma seemanni, otherwise known as the Costa Rican striped knee tarantula. This is also one of the other tarantulas that I got off of the guy from Craigslist. I've only had it maybe a couple weeks at this point, so I don't know if it's male or female yet. Currently it's hiding underneath this cork bark, but I will put a picture up on screen here of what it looks like. Also, these tarantulas really love to burrow, and this enclosure that it's in right now only allows it to burrow down maybe 2 inches, so I'm going to be rehousing it into a critter keeper like I keep my other tarantulas in. For this particular species of tarantula, I like to keep the enclosure half moist and half dry so it can pick and choose which side it wants to be on. But that about does it for this tarantula, so moving on to the next one. So guys, this right here is actually my first tarantula ever. This is a girl that started it all. It is a confirmed female Chilobrachys Sp. So right now you can't really see her very well, so I'm going to try and tease her out to give you guys a better look. And there she is, guys. Beautiful tarantula. Awesome species. This is also known as a curly hair tarantula. I've had this girl for about almost 3 years now. I got her back in February of 2019, which is when I started the hobby. So guys, this right here is actually one of my very first tarantulas. I believe it was the third one that I ever got. This is a confirmed female Chilobrachys vagans. This is the first tarantula that I bought as a sling, and I actually raised her up from about a half an inch. She's pushing 4 inches now. I believe her last molt that I measured was just over 4.5 inches, so she's almost full grown now. But right now she's down in her burrow, so you guys can't really see her very well. So I will put a picture up on screen of what she looks like. But it's an awesome species. Jet black with a red abdomen. You can't go wrong with the vagans. So that about does it for this tarantula. Moving on to the next one. So that wraps up the second shelf. Let's move down to the third one. So guys, this right here is actually my second tarantula ever. This is a confirmed female Grammostola pulchripes. Beautiful species. This girl's last molt that I measured, I believe, was over 5 inches, so she's getting near adulthood. But you guys can't really see her that well, so I'm going to try and tease her out for you. But a beautiful tarantula, guys. Like I said, confirmed female Grammostola pulchripes. If you don't have one, I highly suggest getting one. They are a slower growing species, but once they reach about an inch and a half, they really start to put on size with each molt. So she's getting to be a pretty good size. I'm looking to start breeding her soon, so hopefully I can have a breeding video for you guys. But moving on to the next tarantula. So guys, this right here is my Grammostola rosea. She's an adult female. Awesome species. This girl I got from a Craigslist ad. Not the same person as the Avicularia and the seemanni. So the story with this girl is the person that gave her to me actually rescued her from a very poor situation. The people that bought her from a pet store, and they were keeping her on newspaper and not feeding her correctly, and she was kept in very poor conditions. So the person that gave her to me rescued her from there, and then she couldn't keep it, so she gave her to me. And that's how I ended up with this beautiful tarantula. So I keep this girl mostly dry. I overflow the water dish maybe once every 2 weeks, once a month. and she seems to thrive. So I feed her just about the same as all my other tarantulas. I try to keep the abdomen around the same size as the carapace. So, Grammostola rosea, if you guys don't have one, you should definitely pick one up because they're an awesome species. Moving down to shelf number 4. So, moving on to the first thing that is not a tarantula. These are actually question mark roaches. They're buried down the substrate now, so I can't find any, but I will put a picture up on screen of what they look like. I just keep them on an inch or two of substrate. I feed them slices of carrot, grapes, oranges, along with some leaf litter and fish food, and they seem to do just fine. I have a piece of egg carton in here just for them to crawl around on. I just got these guys recently, I believe over the summer, and they haven't really grown a ton, but they have put on some size. They're still not to that adult size where they have the cool coloration. These are an awesome roach species. If you guys want to pick some up, I highly recommend it. So moving on to the next tarantula, guys. This was actually sold to me as a Cyriopagopus albostriatus, but I do believe it's actually a von Worthy. This is an old world fossorial species. These guys dig massive burrows in the wild, so you want to keep them with a lot of substrate. This one I just threw in a piece of cork bark and put a little pre-made tunnel underneath the cork, and it took right to it, dug straight down to the bottom and out the side, and made this awesome web tunnel. These guys like it pretty moist, so I keep the bottom layers of substrate pretty much moist all the time. Keep the upper levels a little bit drier, so if it gets too moist down there, it can come up and dry out a little bit. But I'm not actually sure if this is a male or a female. It did molt since I got it, but it molted in its burrow, so I couldn't get it out to sex it. So you guys can just see its feet there in the edge of the tunnel. So I will put a picture up on screen of what it looks like. They're a beautiful tarantula, jet black with a little bit of white on its legs. Awesome looking tarantula. These are definitely not a beginner tarantula, so if you guys are just starting in the hobby, I would probably start with something else. But after you guys feel comfortable with tarantulas, you know, you've had 2 or 3 different species, you want to try an old world, I would recommend getting one of these. They're an awesome tarantula. They are a pet hole, so that means you don't see them very often. They usually stay down in their burrow. These guys are awesome eaters. Every time I throw a roach in, this one eats. And that about does it for this tarantula, so moving on to the next one. So guys, this is the 3rd and final tarantula that I picked up from the guy on Craigslist. This is a Theraphosa stearmi. This is by far the largest tarantula in my collection. Right now the enclosure it's in is not necessarily ideal, but this is what I got it in. So I hope to put it into a 20-gallon long tank and make an awesome enclosure out of that. So look out for that rehousing video. But these guys like it fairly moist, so I keep most of the substrate moist. I leave a little bit of it dry just so it can decide where it wants to go. This is an awesome species of tarantula. It's one of the largest in the world. 2nd largest, I believe, next to the blondie. So if you guys want to pick one up, I highly recommend it. So moving on down here to the 5th and final shelf. Starting off here, we have my mealworm colonies. Right now I have 4 containers of them. Moving on down, I have my male dubia roaches that I took out of my roach colony. And we have some clown isopods, so I'll give you guys a closer look at them. So these are my clown isopods. There should be a bunch under this cork bark. Yeah, and there they are. These are an awesome species of isopod. These are actually the only isopods that I have currently, but they are breeding fairly well for me. I recently got these guys back at the same time I got the question mark roaches. So I haven't had them all that long, but they have been thriving for me. So hopefully I can get more isopods. I've been looking into maybe getting some dairy cows, maybe some zebras. So we'll see. But I'll keep you guys posted if I get any more isopods. So moving on to the shelf where I keep my slings, I have 11 tarantulas over here, so I'll give you guys a closer look at them. So this right here is my Aphonopelma gabelli. I've gotten this one about over 2 years now, and it hasn't grown at all. I got it when it was like 3/4 of an inch, and it's maybe 1 1/4 inches. So it's grown about 1/2 inch in 2 years, but it is an Aphonopelma, and that's just kind of how it goes with them. As an adult, these guys are awesome looking, so in a few years I'll have a great looking tarantula, and that's just kind of how it goes with Aphonopelmas. They take forever to grow, but they look awesome as adults. So moving on to the next tarantula, this is my Aphonopelma chalcodes. It's another Aphonopelma, so like I said, they take forever to grow. I got it at the same time I got my Aphonopelma gabelli, and I got this one. It was about half an inch, and it's maybe 3/4 of an inch now. So it takes forever to grow, but they do look awesome as adults. So this is my pumpkin patch tarantula, the Hapalopus species Columbia. I got this one when it was super tiny, maybe 1/8 of an inch, back about 2 years ago now. And it's grown quite a bit. It's just over an inch, I would say. They're a New World tarantula. They're awesome looking. They got this really cool black and orange pattern on their abdomen and on their carapace. So if you guys don't have one, I would suggest picking one up. This is a dwarf species, so they stay small. They stay under 4 inches, and mine's trying to get away. But they stay under 4 inches, so it makes a great species if you don't have a lot of room left and you still want to get another tarantula. So I would suggest getting one. They're great eaters. They eat everything you put in their enclosure. They have an awesome feeding response, so they're a really fun tarantula to have. So this little guy right here, it's kind of hard to see him because he's so small. But this is a Nandu chromatus. I recently picked this up at an expo. It's molded twice for me, so it has put on some size, but it's still very small. I'll put a picture up on screen of what these guys will look like when they're an adult. They get an awesome black, white, and red pattern. They get fairly large too, 6-7 inches. They're a New World tarantula, and they're an awesome species. So if you guys don't have one, I would suggest picking one up. So this right here is my Chilobrachys species electric blue. This is an awesome old world fossorial tarantula. I love Chilobrachys species, as I know a lot of people do. And this one is probably my favorite out of the entire genus. They get this awesome blue color to them, as the name implies. This particular one I got back the beginning of this year, almost a year ago now. I found this guy at an expo for $45, and I figured, you know what, I had to have it. All the other places I've seen them, they're $75, $90. I figured $45, it's a bargain, so I picked it up. And it's an awesome tarantula. It's grown a ton for me. It's probably 1.5 inches now, almost 2 inches, so I really need to rehouse it. So look out for that rehousing video. This is my Ceratogyrus starlingi. She's down in her tunnel right now, so you can't see her. But she's probably about 1.5 inches now. This is an old world tarantula, and the cool thing about Ceratogyrus species is they actually get a horn on their carapace. So I'll put a picture up of what it looks like. If you're looking to get into old world species, I would suggest getting a Ceratogyrus, whether it's a Darlingi, Marshalli, whatever. I would recommend starting with a Ceratogyrus. So this right here is the Brachypelma homori, the hobby staple tarantula. Whenever people think of a tarantula, this is what they picture. Mine's still pretty small. It's maybe 1.5 inches, so it doesn't have that cool black and orange coloration yet, but it will with time. This is an awesome New World tarantula from Mexico. If you guys don't have one, you have to pick one up. They like it fairly dry as adults, but like with most of my slings, I like to keep half the enclosure moist and half dry. That way they can pick and choose where to go. So this is my second Brachypelma species. This is a Brachypelma bomi. I got it around the same time as I got my homori from Netbug. This one's pushing about 1.5 inches now. It's starting to finally get the adult colorations. These guys as adults get an awesome coloration. It's black and orange. The orange is bright orange on their legs. This one though, it is a hair kicker, so if you guys are really prone to urticating hairs, maybe stay away from this species because they do like to kick hair. But with that being said, every tarantula is different. Maybe yours doesn't kick hair at all, but mine does, and I know a lot of other people say that theirs do. But if the urticating hairs are not an issue for you, I would suggest getting one because they are an awesome species. They're from Mexico, so as adults, they like it to be more dry, but still give them a water dish, keep their abdomen around the same size as their carapace, and yours will do just great. So this is actually my second Ptililtocotyle ablopelosis. Like I said, I love this species, otherwise known as a curly hair tarantula. I did get this one as a freebie from my Netbug order. As slings, these guys really like to burrow, so give them lots of substrate. These guys are great eaters. They always eat everything you put in their enclosure. They're pretty moderate growers too. This one I got when it was probably about 1/4 inch 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, and it's probably pushing 2 inches, so Pretty good growth rate. I do believe this is a male from the last mold it had. It looked like a male, but just to be sure, I'm going to check the next one. But if it is a male, maybe I can do a future breeding project with my female. But awesome species of tarantula again, the Chilobrachys Sp. So on to the next tarantula. This is the last New World species that I have. This is the Lasiodora parahybana, or otherwise known as the salmon pink bird eater. These guys do get fairly large. They get 9-10 inches. I got this one just over 2 years ago. It was probably about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, and now it's over 2 inches, so they grow fairly fast. These guys like it a little bit more moist, so I like to keep the substrate, at least the bottom layer, a little bit moist. Always keep that water dish in there. They're great eaters. They always eat everything you put in there. So this right here is my Chilobrachys discalus blue. I've had this one for over a year now, and it's really put on a ton of size really quickly. These guys do like to web up everything, as you can see, and they love the burrow. So give them lots of substrate, lots of places to web it up, and they'll do just fine. So I wouldn't recommend getting one as your first tarantula because they are an old world and they can be very fast. Like other tarantulas, they aren't aggressive, but they are defensive. So just take precautions with them, along with all other tarantulas. They like it fairly moist, so I keep the bottom layer of substrate moist, and I let the top dry out just a little bit, and that way they can pick and choose where it wants to be. So this makes number 19 the last tarantula in my collection. So guys, moving on from all the invertebrates, we have my 29-gallon fish tank. Currently, it has 1 angelfish, 3 rummy-nosed tetras, 1 harlequin rhizobora tetra, 7 peppered corridors catfish, 2 autocinclus catfish, and a bristlenose pleco. I've had this tank set up now for just over 6 years, so it's a very well established tank. The plants that I have in here are all live. It's Anubias and Java fern, and I believe that is dwarf sage in the front. Most of the fish in this tank are quite old. I got them around the same time I set up this aquarium. So the angelfish, half the Corydoras, and some of the tetras are just over 6 years old now. So I originally started with 5 Corydoras catfish, and over time 2 of them passed away, but I was able to breed the 3 that I had, and that's how I ended up with the other 4. In the future, I'm hoping to breed these Cory catfish. I have a 10-gallon in another room that is set up, but there's nothing in it. So I'd like to use that as a grow out tank for the fry. So guys, that actually concludes the collection tour. If you guys stayed clear to the end, leave a thumbs up, tell me something in the comments. I hope everyone enjoyed, and have a great day.